Reparations. It's a term you've likely heard before, but what does it mean? It's a type of compensation given to a group of people who've suffered abuse at the hands of a more powerful group.
The title of this video is Too Late for Reparations, and you start the video with the definition of reparations, which is a type of compensation given to a group who have been abused by a more powerful group. Okay, well, by that definition alone, you've just proven that it is in fact too late for reparations, as every single slave who was involved during the slave trade is dead, and every single slave owner is also dead. So it is impossible for anyone to pay compensation to the abused group, as they are dead, as well as the group who did the abusing, who are also dead.
In the US, it's often talked about in terms of slavery. But slavery was so long ago, and some ask, why should Black Americans be compensated now?
What a great question. Why should Black Americans be compensated now? None of them were ever slaves, and no white Americans alive today were slave owners.
Well, proponents argue that the US was built on the backs of slaves.
You are right to an extent. Slavery in America made around $6 billion for the economy overall, which is around $300 billion in today's terms. Slavery was very profitable and did help America's economy a lot. But even if I gave you the point that slavery was just the sole reason for economic growth and other factors just were left out, that still wouldn't justify people now paying black people compensation. I mean, during slavery you can argue that economic growth largely occurred due to slavery, but the 150 years after that, I mean, come on, if you skip over all of history and just look from pre-American Civil War and 2016, whenever this video was made, of course you're going to make the link that, oh, America is in this state now solely because of slavery.
And all our social institutions continue to reinforce rigid economic inequalities against blacks.
Okay, how are all of your social institutions reinforcing rigid economic inequalities against blacks? Alright, I'm going to skip over this next part because she basically just sums up slavery. She says, the white families who owned slaves, all 1.4% of them, they all made immense profit from slavery. And then the black families obviously suffered greatly at the hands of their masters during the slave trade, whether they were, raped, beaten, or even killed by their owners. We all agree these are facts. This happened. It was terrible. So I'm just going to skip over that.
While all Americans of all backgrounds are deemed equal under the law, equality also means equal access to economic opportunity, healthcare, property, education, and justice. Black people have been systematically denied these things for the past 150 years. Really?
Black people are still denied all these things today. So right now, black people are treated as inferior and do not have the same rights as white people. I mean, in what state is this occurring in? I mean, just list them for me, because I seriously cannot even think of a single one.
And not just by Jim Crow laws in the South. Every major American social institution has roots in slavery. The U.S. school system is still unequal and unofficially segregated.
Alright, when you say that the schools are unequal and unofficially segregated, could that be by any chance based around the population of like a state or a city? There could be states such as Detroit, which is 80% black, so of course there's going to be unofficial segregation because there's just more black people in that area. And I mean, black people are around 13% of the population. It's kind of obvious that some unofficial segregation is going to take place, considering there's so many more white people in America than black people. Of course there's going to be situations where there's a ton of more white people in the school than black people.
Teachers in minority schools make less money and are less likely to be certified.
Okay, but do you think there's like any other reason that they are paid less than, oh, well, it's a minority school, there's less white people there, so let's pay them less. So no, I mean, there are instances when these minority schools are in poor areas. Therefore, the teachers who are working in these schools in poor areas are not going to be making as much money as a teacher who's like working in a rich area or even like a middle class area.
Black students are often at a disadvantage from day one, and fewer black boys graduate from high school.
Is there a reason you left out black girls on their graduation? Because half of all black women aged 18 to 24 are pursuing higher degrees. Black women are actually beating all other groups. It doesn't matter what race or gender they are, black women are beating them all when it comes to overall college enrollment. It's kind of funny how you left that out. Oh, and also, when it comes to black women, they are the highest of enrollments in college, followed by Asian women, and then Asian men, and then white women, and then black men, and then Hispanic women, and then white men, and then finally Hispanic men. So, talk about black boys not graduating. There are more black men, percentage-wise, pursuing higher degrees than there are white men and Hispanic men. So, like, what the hell is your point you're trying to make?
60% of people behind bars in the US are people of color, and black men are close to 6 times more likely than white men to go to prison.
When you look at the 60% of the prison population of black statistic, and the fact that black people are 6 times more likely to go to prison, to be in prison, than white people, when you actually look at crime statistics, it's pretty obvious to see why. You look at homicides. Blacks accounted for 52.5% of homicide offenders from 1980 to 2008, with whites at 45.3% and other 2.2%. Youth crime. In the year 2008, black youths, who make up 16% of the youth population, accounted for 52% of juvenile violent crime arrests, including 58.5% of youth arrests for homicide and 67% for robbery. And when you look at robbery, according to the National Crime Victimization Survey in 2002, the black arrest rate for robbery was 8.55 times higher than whites, and blacks were 16 times more likely to be incarcerated for robbery than non-Hispanic whites. When you look at a 2004 National Crime Victimization Survey, which analysed carjacking over 10 years, it found that carjacking victims identified 56% of offenders as black and 21% as white. Now, I'm not just saying that, oh, black people were just criminals. It's like, no, but there's a reason that 60% of the prison population are black when you're looking at the crimes, and the majority, in most cases, are just, they're done by black criminals. I mean, you put 2 and 2 together. That's why 60% of the prison population is black.
Housing discrimination continues as well. Thanks to old techniques like redlining, which deny home loans and insurance to people living in certain areas, and predatory lending, blacks have been forced to live in low-income neighborhoods and denied the chance to own homes.
Is it only because of redlining and predatory lending that blacks are forced to live in low-income neighborhoods and denied the chance to own their own homes? I'm sorry to say, but there are more black people in poverty than any other race, percentage-wise, which you're obviously going to say is down to slavery, but whatever. I mean, this picture shows the poverty rates of black people compared to the whole of the US. The fact that there are more black people, percentage-wise, than any other race that are in poverty, it's kind of obvious to conclude that there are going to be more black people living in low-income neighborhoods and unable to own their own homes.
Oh, and then there's life expectancy.
And then there is life expectancy. It's like, look at his face. It's like she's uncovered the plot that white people have been, for the past 2 centuries, messing around with the genetic material of black people to make it that they don't live as long as us white devils. Like, what is that face? Wait, what? What do you mean I can't say that? It's a fact. Wait, what? What do you mean we're recording? Paused it. Oh, fuck.
Black men die on average 5 years earlier than white men. The infant mortality rate for black babies is more than twice that of whites. Socioeconomic factors like diet, lifestyle, and lack of preventative care all come into play here.
Wait, so you're telling me that what people choose to eat of their own accord and how to live their lives, whether they exercise or not, has an effect on their life expectancy? I mean, no, that's a lie. That is not. You were doing so well with this video. pointing out all the racism in America and how it all relates to slavery, and then you go and make a silly, irrational point that what people eat and whether they exercise or not somehow affects how long they live. Ah, preposterous. That is poppycock. Just, I hope you're joking. I really do. Otherwise you are a secret racist.
So you think all of this might make our nation's leaders want to have a discussion about reparations?
Why would world leaders watch this video and be like, or, read up on these statistics that you give with no context at all, and be like, you know what? Yeah, these people today who have not spent a single day of their lives as a slave, we should give them reparations. Us people who never owned slaves and were never alive when people did own slaves in the West. Yeah, let's give them some money. Because slavery, the consequences are still being felt today. Don't you know 60% of the prison population are inhabited by black people? I'm not going to give any statistics to, prove why that's the case. I'm just going to ignore that because, that goes against my narrative that, slavery is still affecting black people today. Black people live less than white people. I mean, you can't explain that other than slavery. I know I did point out lifestyle, diet, and, care, but I know that disproves my point about slavery being the cause of all of these bad situations for black people, but yeah, it's slavery.
But you'd be wrong. Congressman John Conyers Jr. has been introducing the same bill for 25 years, calling for a commission to discuss reparations. It's been shot down every time.
I wonder why.
And while there are many obstacles in the way of distributing reparations, it's not impossible. Take Germany, South Africa, and Chile, all countries that have given reparations to groups of people their governments mistreated.
The three examples you gave for reparations, Chile, South Africa, and Germany, were all given within a time period where people who endured the suffering were still alive when the reparations were given out. In Chile, they implemented reparations between 1990 and 2004 for a military regime which was from 1972 to 1990. So the same year the military regime ended, reparations were beginning to be passed out. So people who endured that military regime were still alive when the reparations were given. And Germany, I'm guessing you're talking about World War One, where they paid reparations during the Treaty of Versailles to France, Russia, and other European countries and countries affected. Once again, the people receiving those reparations were alive during World War One. Whether you agree with the Treaty of Versailles or not, it's besides the point. The people who received the reparations endured what Germany did to them and their people and their country. And the same thing was done in South Africa. There's an argument that not enough reparations was given, but that's an argument for another time. The reparations that were handed out, whether it be legal action, money or land, once again, it was within the lifetime of the people who endured the suffering that happened. Can you see the correlation I'm making here? Germany, Chile, South Africa all gave reparations to people they affected within their lifetime. It's not like in 150 years' time the Germans are gonna give some reparations to the Jews. That would be ridiculous because no German or Jew alive either endured the Holocaust or took part in it. That's the difference between these three examples you've just given and slavery. No one alive was affected by it.
And even here in the US, reparations have happened. In 1988, the US began the process of reparations for more than 100,000 surviving Japanese Americans that were placed in incarceration camps during World War II.
This is the second time now you have just answered your question, is it too late for reparations? And the answer is yes. The example you gave of the US giving reparations already, we've already done it. Well, let's do it again. 1988, 43 years after World War II ended, and you even say to yourself, 100,000 surviving Japanese Americans who were put in camps during World War II in America. Yes, the reparations given to them were justified. Yeah, you know, they endured that stuff 43 years ago. They were alive when it happened. Black people today were not alive when slavery happened. I can't believe when making this video you did not see that.
Reparations don't have to be monetary. They can be commissions for collective healing, investment in underdeveloped neighborhoods, access to skills training, or even major legal reforms.
Purely for black people, right, since it is reparations for black people who endured slavery, you know, those low income, poorly developed neighborhoods that white people or Hispanic people or Asian people live in. Yeah, well, that doesn't fit into our reparations, you know, because you weren't enslaved 200 years ago, almost 200 years ago. So, you know, we deserve our neighborhoods now to be, you know, funded and improved on, but no, you're not dark enough.
There are, of course, many questions, like who would get compensated
People who weren't actually enslaved.
and what specific problems would be solved.
The problems that will be solved will be specifically for black people today. In America, you know, that group of people who haven't been enslaved in almost 2 centuries. Yeah, them. They deserve reparations today. We need to help their poor neighborhoods. We shouldn't try help improve all poor neighborhoods of people of all races. Why would we do that? We need to focus on the poor black people.
Reparations don't right the wrongs of the past, nor are they a means by which the conditions of people who've been grossly abused are somehow magically fixed. But in a country where the government has yet to formally apologize for slavery, something that began 400 years ago, isn't it time to start talking about what can be done to heal those wounds?
I'm going to be serious here. It is too late to apologize for something that no one alive today did. Like, why should all white people apologize for slavery when no white people alive today was involved with slavery? This notion of white guilt that, oh, we should be ashamed of what some of our ancestors did centuries ago. It's like, no, I'm not sorry for something that I had no part of. I shouldn't get the blame for something I didn't do, and I shouldn't take responsibility for something I didn't do. So we shouldn't apologise to black people today who have not endured slavery. I don't know if it sounds like to fucking say it, but they haven't endured it, especially in the Western society. Like, there's no slavery now. Black people in America have never been slaves today. All the ones who were alive had never been slaves. The ones who were slaves died a long time ago. The people who enslaved them died a long time ago. So, no, they shouldn't apologise for something they had no hand in. It's ridiculous. Like, I'm not going to apologise on behalf of someone else. It's like, it's fucking bollocks. I mean, okay, I'm done. I've had enough. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being white. I'm sorry for I'm sorry. I'm sorry we enslaved your people. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Suck my schlong. Don't forget to share this video with all your friends, because if you don't, you hate black people.